Welcome to the Reality Revolution. I'm so excited today. I have Scarlett Grace of Unseen Seraph. Scarlett has one of the most amazing YouTube channels and one of my very favorites. It's an automatic watch every time it comes up. She has the coolest voice in the world. And of course, she would be the seen Seraph if you could see her. So she's still the unseen Seraph. But I'd asked for a long time for her to come on because she really deals with some subjects that I'm interested in that I don't know a lot about or I'm not very good at teaching. And so I wanted her to bring her in. She talks about how to manifest a specific person. She relates some of the teachings with Neville Goddard. She has some experience in magic, and I just can't wait to talk to her because she has a very unique perspective. And I have so much to learn from her. So welcome to the Reality Revolution, Scarlett. Nice to have you.
Nice to be here, Brian. Thank you for inviting me. You have, honestly, one of my favorite YouTube channels. I love watching your videos.
Well, thank you. And you have one of my favorite channels as well, and one of my favorite voices. And just so everybody knows, as you say in your notes on YouTube, you have a young sounding voice,
I do.
but you're still in your 30s, right? So, like, of course, the first time I heard your video, I had I had a visualization of, yes, like someone a little bit younger, and then, oh, okay. Um, but
Yeah,
that's
actually, I turn 32 next month.
fantastic. Now, there is an accent. So, what country are you from?
I am from Greece,
Okay.
and this peculiar accent is the result of having a British accent for most of my life and then watching a lot of American TV series. So I have this weird accent now.
Ah, well, I love it. It's perfect. It's absolutely you. If I heard your voice in a room of like 1,000 people, I would immediately know that you were there. Like it's instantly recognizable. So now you talk about a lot of particular topics on your channel, and starting with law of attraction. We'll get into the specifics of it. But clearly, you've been on a journey where you discovered the power of your mind and magic to create and twist and change reality. So tell me a little bit about your story and how you came to be a teacher, teaching things like the law of attraction.
Well, I discovered spirituality in general, not the law of attraction, when I was about 9 years old.
Hmm.
At that time, I was more interested about topics like telepathy or life after death and spirits. So I read everything I could find on those topics. And then at some point, I found my first law of attraction book. That was in the late 90s, before it was a cool topic, before The Secret came
Right.
out. And I was so shocked because it was the first time I read that someone could have control over their reality and what happens in their lives without actually taking action. Because I get the appeal when it comes to things like money, for example, but those things, at least to my 10-year-old mind, you could work towards. My issue was what happens with things that you cannot actually take physical action, like what happens if you need healing. And it was
Hmm.
the first time that I realized that maybe there is a way to use your mind to achieve things that others say are impossible, or to at least help and improve situations where you don't have the physical means to do something about them. And I felt a whole new world had opened up for me when I read that book. So I just kept reading everything that had to do with spirituality, with the law of attraction, with magic, which wasn't much back then
Right.
in Greece, in a
Right.
small town. So,
So
so that
what was the
was,
name of that first book again?
I believe the title was Living Magically. I think the author is Jill Edwards.
Okay.
I can look it up. I'm not 100% sure because I lost that book during a move
Right.
15 years ago.
I have
I
a
think
few
I have
books
to
like
buy it
that
again.
I have big teachings from. Like, I don't remember who the author. Like, it's on the tip of the edge of my tongue, edge of my memory, right there. I get that. So the reason I am like your channel so much, uh, as I start teaching this stuff, I get a lot of people that come to me that really want to manifest a specific person, that are struggling in love, and then they realize that that they may be causing the problems in their relationship, And so at first, the the logical part of me said, you can't really manifest a specific person. You can't manipulate anybody. And so at the beginning of my channel, I kind of took this position that you can try, but I didn't really believe it. And then I started seeing proof of it. I started seeing people that were manifesting their specific person. So I had to change my own beliefs about it. And I realized I didn't know a lot. I had an episode recently from Florence Scovel Shin. But if I was to go to like one particular expert, I would say that you, of the videos that you have really kind of gone through the nuance of exploring how to find love through our mind using Neville Goddard and several different experts. So help the reality revolution out. There's a lot of people listening to this show right now that have somebody out there that they really want, and they want them so bad, and they've come to me for help, and maybe I can't help them. What's a good step? First of all, is it possible, and how does someone go about doing it?
Well, first of all, yeah, it is absolutely possible, because if we go by the theory that has been proven by many people in their personal experience, that the whole world is us pushed out, that includes other people. Now, that doesn't mean that those people are puppets, that they're just holograms that do not exist.
Mhm.
But I believe your viewers are familiar with reality transurfing, with
Yes.
parallel realities. So,
Mhm.
to my understanding and how I understand Neville Goddard, the way it works is based on how I see the world, I move to a reality where what I believe is already true. So essentially, there are countless realities that have a version of that person. So I'm not sending waves with my mind or energy to change someone's mind and force
Mhm.
them to love me or want to be with me. I just move myself to a reality where that person actually wants to be with me. There is a version of that person that feels that way. I just move myself there.
Right.
So I don't
So
know
the
if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. And so for the person that says you can't manipulate anybody, uh, so you're answering that in that you're not necessarily manipulating somebody. You're moving into a reality where that person genuinely wants to be with you. You're moving your consciousness, and you're seeing a reflection in the reality that you move into. Correct?
Yeah, pretty much that.
Okay. Um, so then there's some nuance with this. A lot of time, and it really is, it's a big lesson when we try to manifest a specific person. In fact, my current girlfriend, I think that she did it with me.
Oh,
So,
that's awesome.
I've even asked, so the first question is, it's natural to form this sort of in your heart a desperation. You can't help but think about them all the time, and you put them up on this pedestal, and they become, in many of the cases of people that I have tried to help, they become an overwhelming obsession. Like they're probably doing stuff and praying and affirming and doing exercises for hours a day. It's a very common pattern. You may have discovered this because I'm sure you have people coming that you coach. um, have Do you notice this phenomenon, and how do we deal with that?
That is actually very, very common. And it is sad because that kind of behavior is what usually stops people from easily manifesting the relationship that they want.
Right.
I feel that usually when someone obsesses over a specific person to that level, there is some kind of limiting belief about themselves, or something about their sense of self-worth that is going on there, that is making them feel that they have to put so much work into manifesting this. It doesn't feel natural. When you feel that you deserve something, you think that you're an awesome person, so why wouldn't that person want to be with you? And it flows a bit easily. When you spend 3 or 4 hours a day concentrating on manifesting someone or something, usually there is something inside of you that you need to take a look at, because it is standing in your way, and possibly in more than one areas of life. because I think that money and love are the two areas that hide the most insecurities behind.
Right.
So if you focus on one of those for a long time, usually other areas of your life improve because you take things out of the way that you didn't notice were there all your life.
Yeah, true. So if I have a specific person okay, let's go with the crazy question that somebody. So I'm a big fan of Demi Moore. I would love um, to date Demi Moore. She's the one for me. And if what you're saying is true, Scarlett, then I'm going to start imagining myself with Demi Moore. I'm going to go through all the techniques that you use. Will I be able to manifest Demi Moore into my life?
That is a question that has multiple layers.
Okay.
Theoretically, yes, you could. But
Mm-hmm.
if you were my coaching client, I would feel obligated to ask a few questions like, how are you so certain that this is the right person for you? Have you even met her in person?
Mm-hmm.
So if you haven't even met her, why so desperate to have a serious relationship with this person? Why are we talking about, I like her, I think she's really cool, I would like to manifest a date with her?
Right.
That would make more sense to me. I mean, if I weren't in a relationship, I don't just go to a bar and say, this guy, I want to marry him. I don't even know his name.
Right.
It comes more naturally. So the idea of wanting to manifest something serious with someone who is famous and you haven't met makes me think that something may not quite be in line here. Maybe there's something we need to look into as to why this specific person. Maybe, who knows, there are
Mm-hmm.
people who are fans of an actor or a singer and they met and they actually fell in love and spent 20 happy years together and had 5 kids. There are cases like that.
Right.
So it's not out of the question. It's just that most people who want something like that have something very serious in mind. And that's a person that they don't actually know. They know the public image of the person, they don't know the actual person. Those can be completely different things.
Right. So
So the
if
answer is yes, but
yes, but right. So is it okay to imagine Demi Moore or something equivalent or better? Or am I dispersing the power in the process? Because there are some coaches that say you can imagine the person that you want or something better or somebody equivalent or better. Does that take away the focus that you have on that particular person?
not necessarily, because I think that if someone is truly open to this or something else that they haven't even thought of that may be better for them,
Mm-hmm.
that would be great. And it actually takes the pressure off. So it isn't this or nothing, and I won't ever be happy in my life unless I have this.
Right. So then
But
if
on the other
I'm,
hand, there are many people who don't want just a relationship that is happy. They want this person, or they're not interested in a relationship right
right,
now. And that's also okay. You don't necessarily need to want this or something better. Maybe you want this, or you'll focus on something else in your life right now.
right. So then the question is, I got this one person, but I'm not going to put them on a pedestal. I'm not going to make them important, but I'm going to visualize them. I'm going to imagine them. But at the same time, I'm on Tinder. I'm on Bumble, and somebody comes along, I'm going to still keep on dating. Is it okay for me to date while I'm trying to manifest a specific person?
That's something I get asked a lot, actually, because
Yeah.
there are many coaches that advise people to date someone else so they manage to not obsess about the person they actually want to manifest. I don't really have an opinion in the sense of it can be useful for some people. I personally wouldn't do it, so I wouldn't tell people to do it. I
Hmm.
either want to be with someone or not. I'm not the casual dating type very much, so
Right.
that's why it doesn't make sense to me. But if it makes sense to someone to do that, then yeah, why not? And maybe along the way they will discover that they want to be with the person they're dating right now and not the original person. That could happen.
Right. And so if people want to get a more in-depth look at manifesting a specific person, definitely check out unseenseraph.com. And you actually have a course. There's a 21-day course on manifesting a specific person that's over the course of 21 days. That's not just on one of your videos that I would recommend. So just some other little nuances that you've discussed that I wanted to bring out. So somebody that I'm really attracted to, say, and I can tell when I text them that I'm blocked. They won't respond to my phone call. The phone just rings and it's done. Um, should I give up at that point? Is there too much? I don't want to be a stalker, right? So how do I use the balance of the powers of my mind? But when somebody is clearly, they will not look at me, they will not talk to me. Should I just let them go?
Well, if we're manifesting based on Neville Goddard's principles, so
Mhm.
we do what is called living in the end,
Right.
thinking and feeling as if our desire has already manifested, then we wouldn't be pursuing someone by sending them text messages or stalking them or calling all the time, right?
Right. Right.
So, what I usually tell people that are in such scenarios is okay, let the person go in the physical world. If you want to manifest them, you can still focus on imagining and feeling that you two are together, but that doesn't mean that you have to reach out to them all the time. And
Hmm.
maybe it will take a while. Maybe what needs to happen is for you two to be apart for a couple of months and for this person to start dating someone else. And only then will they realize that they want to be with you, actually.
Right.
So,
It's a part of the bridge of incidents that is leading you together, and at least you can envision it that way.
yeah, of course. And one of the people in my Facebook group brought up a couple of days ago, I think.
Hmm.
Uh, Many people say that Neville Goddard said you shouldn't manifest a specific person, and that's only half right. Neville Goddard said that he didn't advise most people to manifest a specific person only because he had the experience of many women at the time going to him and saying that I want to marry this specific person. And he would ask, if that person dropped dead tomorrow, would you stay single for the rest of your life? And they would say, but he won't fall dead tomorrow. And he would insist, yeah, but if it happened, would you never marry anyone else just because this is the one for you? And they avoided the question. And many of those girls, a few months or a couple of years later, they would invite him to their wedding. And it wasn't with the person that they claimed it was the one and no one else will do for them. So that's why he insisted, if you want to get married, imagine that you are happily married. It doesn't have to be with one specific person, and maybe it will be this person or someone else. But Neville himself says in one of his lectures that when he first saw the woman he married, he instantly fell in love with her. And
Right.
she didn't fall in love with him. But he thought that this will change because in his mind, he knew this was the woman he was going to marry. And they did get married.
Right.
So he didn't actually do what he advised most people to do because he felt that he knew he had found the one and that was it. It didn't matter that she didn't want him yet because his imagination would change things.
Right. Yeah, from my experience, it can be done. So I take back any time I ever said it's not possible, but it's not easy because your heart is involved. It's emotional, and it is. I think that maybe God gave us this path of dealing with love as a way of learning about how powerful our thoughts are with other people as part of the process. At least in my own case. Uh, so you mentioned Neville Goddard, and uh, so to backtrack a little bit, tell me a little bit about how you started getting into Neville Goddard along the process, and what inspired you about Neville Goddard.
Well, I actually didn't hear about Neville Goddard in the beginning of my journey with the law of attraction. It was in the last decade that I started studying his material.
Hmm.
And that's because when I first heard about him, people were saying that he writes in a very, very difficult manner. And they were so insistent in that I didn't even check his writing out.
Hmm.
And one day I thought to myself, when I saw mention of his name again, wait a minute, why would I care if he writes in a difficult manner? I mean, if I can read text from centuries ago and have no issue understanding,
Right.
what could he be writing that is so difficult? So I started studying his material, and I don't think it's difficult. Certainly, there are many biblical references. So if
Yes.
someone is not familiar with the Bible, it's a bit hard to follow. But he doesn't write in a difficult way. I think his writing is a lot like an inspired preacher. So
Yes.
maybe that's why people find the writing difficult. It's not like contemporary, yeah, go girl, you got it kind of
Right. No,
writing.
it's
But
older school. It feels like it's from another age a little bit. Uh,
yeah, it does. But to me, that is inspiring. I guess
yeah.
that's personal taste. I find that very, very inspiring. He conjures very vivid imagery.
Yes. So you also are like me are interested in magic and sigils and you've explored a little bit of that on the channel. So first of all, is there a meeting point between the schools of magic which go back beyond before the Bible and the law of attraction? And in me, many ways, I think they're the same thing. People were exploring the way that their mind could attach to beliefs and using different vibrations and spells. But some people are like, "Oh, law of attraction," but that magic stuff, that's dangerous. And so, in my own case, there you can definitely see the separation in the community. But I think that it's a mistake to separate the two. I think that when we talk about magic, we're talking about the law of attraction. What is your opinion on that?
Well, there is certainly separation in the mind of people. I think there isn't
Yeah.
actually a separation. So to me, anything that could fall under the law of attraction category, it would also fall under the category of mental magic. The
Hmm.
reason I don't refer to it in this way is because people have very, very different understandings of what magic is. So magic is
Right.
not one thing. There are tons of different traditions from different cultures. It's not one thing. You can see the similarities. You can see how the same principles exist in multiple different magical traditions across
Hmm.
the world. But you have to know what you're looking for. You have to know one tradition really well in order
Yeah.
to look at other traditions and say, oh, they have this that is a lot like my tradition's X thing, for example.
Hmm.
And the way most people, or at least the way mainstream magic is presented, doesn't give you the opportunity to do that, because the
Right.
trend is for people to basically take the law of attraction and the candle and focus on their desire while lighting the candle, and that's magic. And yeah, it is magic, but that's like the prequel to Magic 101 in my mind. There are many, many different
Right.
things that can go into it that's so watered down that
Hmm.
it's just law of attraction with a candle. So I think this is doing magic a disservice, because people think that they cannot actually be specific with magic. You just light a candle and you stick a paper underneath that says love, and magically this will solve your problems. And this is very general. I mean, who asks
Right.
for love in general?
Right.
Okay, I asked for love and my dog came, and
So,
that's love. I mean, yeah, isn't
yeah.
it?
Right.
I didn't specify. That's the
Right.
only reason I don't talk about magic. They're distinct things. I didn't want to talk about the law of attraction when I was teaching magic, and
Right.
that people didn't like that either.
On my Facebook group, when I posted some videos that were just talking about an explanation of different magical schools, I start, hey, this is you shouldn't be posting this. This is evil and occult, right? You get that small portion, and then they've disappeared. So when you go back and look at the history of magic with the Golden Dawn tradition and some of these incredible rituals that would take half of a year, like the sacred magic of the Abramelin that like Aleister Crowley does, and some of these schools. And for many people, it was a lifelong obsession that they never perfected. There's so many intricacies that are involved with it. So for me, there's part of like, I don't know if I want to spend that much time on it. Uh, I've always wanted to find powerful magic that I could do easily. Instead, I don't want to have to go get the eye of a fish. I don't want to boil a certain herb. Those kind may have some truth in it, but they've always been almost too much work and effort to do magic. There's so many different schools of magic. Well, what would you recommend? Is there a good place to start where we can actually test it, like you say, and see that you've personally seen the examples that this stuff works?
Well, that is a difficult question to answer, only because, as I said, there are many different traditions,
Yeah.
and it comes down to preference. I mean, if you have no idea about the topic but you would love to explore that, there are many beginner friendly books, for example,
Hmm.
but they're not all on the exact same topic. So I think that I would probably recommend 2 or 3 different books based on different systems or different
Hmm.
styles of magic, so that whoever is interested can explore and see what feels more interesting to them, what they feel the urge to start testing. Because
Right.
not all magic works for all people the same way. Sometimes you have a calling towards one thing, or it's more like it fits your personality better, and that's why it works better for you.
Hmm.
So, for example, you say that you wouldn't want to spend 6 months preparing for a ritual and finding rare ingredients. There are people who love that kind of thing, who will
Right.
try to do everything the 100% traditional way, and they will wake up at 5 a.m. To go into the forest and find the right tree of the right age and cut a branch from the right side of the tree to construct the one that will take 3 months. And they love that stuff.
Right. Yeah. And I can see that.
Yeah, and other
I'm
people are
impatient.
like, why should I do that when I can just create a sigil and stare at it and have something happen in my life?
Right. So the
Different styles of people.
so the
So
sigil that you mentioned has been the most effective for me, and it's kind of like almost you're concentrating your manifestation, your vision, your intention into a symbol. And
mhm.
so then every time that you look at that symbol, you're evoking all the feelings and everything that you pressed into it, almost a condensed, refined version of your manifestation. Is that a good way of explanation for it?
I think it is. I think,
Okay.
yeah, I think it is a symbol that has a meaning, and for many people, you forget the meaning and concentrate on the symbol, so it sinks into the subconscious, which knows how to make
Right.
it happen the best.
So a couple other questions around manifestation. Uh, I'm like everybody else. I'm sure that you are the same. We have major doubts. You get doubts. You think you're going to do it, and of course Neville Goddard's always talking. We got to have faith, and all these great teachers. I got to believe. But then there's that part of you that you can even hear it, that little voice deep down saying, this is very unlikely and it's impossible. And there's that resistance. So you had actually, I think, dedicated a video on it that was helpful for me. How do I deal and how do I eliminate that doubt that I'm aware of? How do I eliminate that in the process?
Well, I believe, and I think there is an author that wrote on that topic, and that was very helpful to me when I first read that. It
Hmm.
is in the book Parallel Universes of Self by
Yes.
Frederick Dodson, which thank you for interviewing. That was lovely to watch.
Yes.
I really love that book.
I love Frederick Dawson. That book is one of my favorite books.
Mine too.
Yeah.
And in that book, he talks about how when we have a big desire, there is a lot of resistance around it. And there are 2 ways of handling that. Because when we have a big desire, it's like trying to jump on a moving train. So either you have to speed up or the train has to slow down, or
Right.
do a bit of both so that you manage to do it. So you either take the desire down a few notches if it's so outrageous that you cannot bring yourself to believe in it no matter what, it just feels impossible. You ask yourself if you actually want that big a desire. So is it something that you can break into separate stages so you don't
Hmm.
have to jump right to the very end of the journey in one visualization? If you can take it down a few notches, if you can make it a little bit more manageable, it
Hmm.
will be a little bit more believable. That's why I usually give the example. If you have a new business, is there a reason you needed to make 1 million in revenue next month? Is there a specific reason for that amount? Can
Right.
it be 6 figures for starters?
Right.
It
Okay.
doesn't have to be the biggest goal ever. You can, if you can wait 6 months or a year and choose a more manageable goal that you can believe in, then you can move on to something a little bigger and a little bigger. And within a year, you will have reached your goal. And the
So
other way is you just take apart all the stuff that makes you doubtful around this goal so that hopefully you will get to a point where it will not feel completely impossible.
right. So if I like as you said, if when you have a client come to you that has a time interval attached. A lot of times that's what's happening, right? I got to pay my bills on this time. I got to pay my house by this time. So what you're saying makes sense to me, that resistance, and I can slow things down or break it apart. But what if I need to manifest something faster? Is there a way to speed up the process at the same time as eliminating that resistance?
That's a tough question to answer.
Yeah.
Theoretically, the way to speed it up is to immerse yourself as fully as possible into the end result that you want, because you cannot focus on having doubts and on experiencing in your mind already having resolved this at the same time. And this is, I think, where many people get stuck, because they are
Hmm.
very stressed and they try to sit down and build up the feeling of already having something on top of the anxiety. So you
Right.
actually have to sit down and relax and maybe meditate for 30 minutes to a relaxing meditation, not the manifesting meditation, so that you bring all that anxiety down to zero, and then
Hmm.
you can build up the vision of the thing that you want to have. But most people try to do one on top of the other. So of course they have trouble staying in the state of the wish fulfilled, and it
Hmm.
doesn't work, because if you're losing your home, if
Right.
you're going to be kicked out next month because you can't pay rent, well, you can't have a panic attack about that and then expect yourself to be able to feel completely relaxed and as if all your problems were solved within 15 minutes of that.
Right.
It's not a sensible expectation from anybody.
Right. So
So
whoever can do it is pretty masterful, because in most cases it's pretty hard, which is why we should it's good to work a little bit farther ahead of time. But
mhm.
at least
I
in
think
my case, yeah.
I think one possibly useful exercise for some people,
Hmm.
that doesn't apply in all cases, but one way to handle this is, in most situation, again, not in every situation, but in most situations, if you sit down and ask yourself, okay, what's the worst that can happen? You will
Right.
discover that the worst case scenario is not as scary as you thought it would be, and that by itself will make you relax. So even someone losing their house because the bank is going to take it, well, maybe you have a friend or relatives you can stay with who would welcome you there, and maybe there you have more job opportunities. And if you sit down and really allow yourself to experience the worst case scenario in your mind, you stop being afraid of it so much, because you have been trying to avoid thinking about it so that it doesn't manifest. So there's this inner war going on. So when
Hmm.
you let yourself actually imagine it, ask yourself, what's the worst that can happen? Let's imagine that, so that we can prepare in the mundane way. Well, usually it's not that bad. It may not be pleasant, but it's not that bad, and it may even have some opportunities there that you can't find where you are right now. So that by itself brings anxiety a little bit down, because you have imagined the worst case scenario and it turned out it wasn't the end of the world. You don't like it, but okay, you can live with that. You can fix things along the way. It doesn't have to be this manifestation or you jump off a bridge. So this by itself may help the desire manifest faster when there's a time crunch.
Perfect. I love it. So tell me a little bit more about your uh I like to collect daily habits and rituals, especially from coaches and teachers, because you're aware all the time about the power of your thoughts. When you teach this stuff, it kind of comes to the forefront. So you probably have a daily ritual, at least a little, what time you wake up, when you meditate. So tell me a little bit more about your routine.
Well, I'm kind of terrible when it comes to daily routines. One of those people who do stuff for a week and then they fall off the wagon and have to get back. I usually, the first time I attempt to test something, I manage to do it for a considerable amount of time.
Right.
But I'm not one of those people who have a very set and fixed routine that they do religiously every single day.
Hmm.
One thing that I do is I have a gratitude practice, because I feel that this generally helps keep people healthy mentally and emotionally. When you dedicate a few minutes every day to gratitude, to thinking about the things that you appreciate in your life and the people that you love and all the good things that you have, I feel that it is useful for manifesting, because it's easier when you start from a place of being grateful. about the things that you already have. It's good for your mental health and your emotional health to spend time on that, because most of us lead
Hmm.
very stressful lives otherwise. So I do have a gratitude practice. At least twice a day, I spend about 10 minutes making a list, either in paper or in my mind, of all the things and the people that I appreciate, that make me happy. And maybe they're silly things, like today the weather is nice, or I saw a cute dog in the park. Maybe it's something like that. It doesn't have to be something big,
Hmm.
but just a list of things that made me smile that day. That's a practice I definitely have. What else? I
That
can't
works.
think of something specific that I definitely do every day. I usually spend some time imagining, but that's because I'm the kind of person that has a vivid imagination and I spend a lot of time in my mind. So,
Yeah. Um, you you dedicated an episode. Now, if people are watching this at the time we're doing this interview, we're still in the coronavirus, and the world is kind of coming undone with protests and lots of crazy stuff. You dedicated an episode on the law of attraction and the coronavirus. So, uh, how can we deal with when we have pandemics and plagues? When we understand the power of our minds, how do we stay healthy in times like this?
well, one of the most common questions when it comes to the law of attraction by people in general,
Hmm.
both skeptic people and people who believe in it, is how does it happen when something like a pandemic manifests or
Hmm.
a natural disaster? So, did we manifest this? Are the people who experience this personally responsible for going through this? Because there are people that say that if you were there when that happened, then it's on you. You manifested it, and that's why you were there during an earthquake, for example. And I find this completely insane because it's not about assigning blame.
Right.
I feel that certain events happen. Maybe we manifested them collectively, maybe not. But at the end of the day, if someone is not there, just because something is happening somewhere in the world doesn't mean that it is going to affect you. I mean, we're talking about the coronavirus, for example,
Hmm.
and people are like, so how did I manifest this? And my question always is, do you have it? And they're usually like, no. Well, do you have a relative that is in the hospital suffering from it right now? No. A friend? No. So
Right.
why are we talking about how you manifested it? Where in your life is it other than the news?
Right.
And I'm saying that because every day there are wars all around the planet. And
Hmm.
people don't talk about them because they're not somewhere they feel that it's a place that is not relevant to them. They don't have
Yes.
relatives, they don't come from there, it's not close to their country, it doesn't affect their quality of life in any way. Nobody talks about wars in specific countries in Africa that have been going on for a decade because
Right.
they feel that that doesn't relate to their life. So why would something like an earthquake relate to them if they're not there? It's the same kind of problem.
Right.
It's not about caring because it is happening, it's because it's in the news and everybody is talking about it. That's the only way, that's the only reason someone is asking, how did I manifest this, when they aren't even going through it? Well, you're healthy, keep up the good job, stop watching the news, stay healthy, follow the rules, keep your mental diet clean. You're probably going to be okay.
Right. There's a real tendency when people start to get into this, uh, where some people start to think that they're the only living person in the universe and that they're creating everything, and that all the people around them they created. And uh, even if it was true, people that take that mentality always seems to work against them massively. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like the people
Yeah.
that some people will hear that everybody is you pushed out, going, "Oh yay, I can push some cool people out that can help me out," or those people I have complete domination over them. I don't. It doesn't appear to work this way, and you've kind of fleshed this out a little bit. Uh, and some people will get angry at the everybody is you pushed out, thinking that you're saying that you are alone in the universe. So, do you understand my question?
I
Okay.
do.
So, what is your opinion on that?
My understanding of the concept of everyone is you pushed out is
Hmm.
that there is a universal intelligence that is everything, that created everything, all the universes, and is everything.
Mm-hmm.
And this is an element of many religions.
Right.
So everything is a part of God. It's just that this super whatever intelligence it is split itself into different kinds of things in order to experience something different. And if you incarnate as a human, for example, in order to have the full human experience, you have to forget that you're God and created the universe. Otherwise, it's not fun.
Right.
It's like playing a video game.
Right.
You immerse yourself in the character. You forget who you are in your everyday life because you want to experience the game as this specific character.
Right.
So in that sense, yeah, everybody is me and I'm alone in the universe. And at the same time, there are millions of people because I chose to come here and forget that I am
Right.
everything at the
Right.
same time. So I don't think that people easily gain full access to their powers, even people that can perform miracles, people who can walk on water or
Mhm.
change one element into another. There have been people across history with such powers. I believe that such people exist, maybe even right now on the planet.
Right.
But usually, and Neville Goddard talks a lot about this with the example of Jesus, usually even those people work on the premise that there is, even if I am God and I have had the mystical experience of being one with everything, which many people, by the way, have had,
Yes.
at least briefly. I have many people in the spiritual community have had at least one such experience in their lives.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that you suddenly have all the knowledge of how the universe was created and you can consciously do it.
Right.
So manifesting
Exactly.
usually works by you focusing your thoughts and your emotions on something and letting that bigger part of you that isn't incarnated as human right now figure out the details. So in that sense,
Right.
people who feel everyone is me pushed out, so I can get this person out of the way and make them suffer a little bit for some payback,
Right.
for example, because now I know that you are me pushed out. Yeah, but would you go slapping yourself? Does that make sense? If I realize that I'm God, so I'm gonna start kicking myself for fun, because that's what it sounds like to me. For example, I mean, people go to some weird places when they hear everybody's you pushed out.
They
I
do.
don't
They
know.
do. I agree. That's part of my concern. There was a part of me that said, I want to teach this, but this can be misconstrued. And I've gone on Neville Goddard groups where, I'm sorry, I'm not even listening to you. You're just me pushed out. I've had that as a response to saying something, and it's like, okay. So yeah, it can be misconstrued and misused, but the way you explained it is perfectly exact. Because it would be no fun if we had everything that we wanted and we were God. We want to forget. We want to be
Mhm.
limited. It gets old being all powerful. Kind of boring, you know. There's not a lot to do, right? So I do believe there's this idea that we individualized and limited ourselves so that we could go through this expansion. So yes, thank you for that explanation. I appreciate that. So are we going to see a book by Scarlet Grace? Are we going to see an Unseen Seraph book with all of the stuff that you've talked about with me so far?
I've thought about it. I don't want to write a book that has the same things that
Right.
other books cover. That's one concern of mine because there are already so many books on such topics
Right.
that even though I could write several books right now, I feel that I'm waiting for that one idea for a book that will be more unique, that it will be
Right.
something that people truly need to hear that is not available elsewhere or isn't well explained elsewhere, so that they truly can get something out of it that they haven't heard before. So I don't know, maybe one day.
Well, the reason I want you to write a book is that I want to listen to your audiobook, because several hours of listening to the Unseen Seraph would just be such joy with me. It would be awesome. Because there's nobody that has as cool a voice as you when you explain some of this stuff. I love it. So is there anything new as you go along this process? We're always constantly coming into new information. Is there anything that you maybe haven't talked about on your channel that you're exploring to expand on, or is it or in that you're still piecing together that you haven't talked in the channel that maybe can broaden our knowledge of this process of reality creation?
Well, one topic that I feel that I haven't truly covered on the channel, it's
Mm-hmm.
not 100% related to manifesting the way people usually think about it,
Mm-hmm.
but has to do with the whole division between magic and manifesting, is the idea of different levels of reality that follow different rules. This is something I haven't talked about. I don't know if people
Mm.
are actually interested.
I'm interested. Yes. So, are you saying that we exist in different realities, or there are other realities that we're moving towards?
I'm saying that what we experience as reality may be, uh, it may contain different layers of things, just like
Yes.
if we take the physical world as most people experience it, we have the level of sound. There are waves that we don't see,
Mm-hmm. Right.
and light. The
Right.
frequencies that are there, we interact with them, but we can't see them necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
So, based on many magical traditions, if you dissect them, there are different layers of reality. So, for example, I don't believe that all kinds of magic and all kinds of manifesting methods necessarily work on the same level of reality. One
Right.
example is I never teach about people projecting energy in order to manifest, not because it doesn't work. It does work, and it is
Mm-hmm.
the popular way to use the law of attraction. You send energy out and it does something. But that to me is a different, that acts on a different layer of reality, and that can feel manipulative when it comes to people. So that's why
Oh, okay.
I have partly covered that in a video, but if I start beaming energy out to you from my heart,
Mm-hmm.
you may start getting annoyed because you feel the manipulation because it's on an energy level.
Right.
It's very different to me imagining that we're friends and moving to um, a parallel reality where you invite me to interview me on your channel.
Right.
Very different ways of manifesting. Both can work. I'm not saying one is right and the other is wrong. I'm saying different levels of reality. It's like um, I I'm looking for an analogy. Well,
Well, I get the I get a feeling from what you're saying. This is
analog and
what I think.
digital, for example.
Right. Right. Okay, that's a good sometimes you get like we're in a vehicle. When you think of a vehicle, you think of a car. But we're in this little vehicle, and we take for granted our eyes and our ears and our mouth, and so these are just energy detectors. So there's probably all kinds of energies going around us, and so this interplay of energies, we're just in this little vehicle that kind of senses only a few. And you get the feeling that as our consciousness expands, even if we evolved, we might be able to have additional senses and understandings of additional energies. So yeah, let's talk about a little bit about energy. uh, do we need to awaken our energy centers? What is your feeling on that? I mean, obviously that's part of religious and magic schools, and uh, so is that affiliated with magic and the law of attraction? Do you awaken your heart chakra or your throat chakra? Do you balance out your energy centers? Or to you, is that, what is your opinion about that?
I feel it can be useful.
Hmm.
Certainly, there are many traditions based on that. From what I've studied, which isn't very deep necessarily, in the sense that I haven't been, for example, to India to study a specific system for 10 years on a mountain with
Right.
a guru, so that I can speak about one specific tradition. I do feel that in the West, we have taken things that are based on traditions that have developed over centuries. There were
Hmm.
some translations. So we have a very small part from a tradition, and that has become mainstream, and people think that's all there is. For example, people tell me we have 7 chakras.
Hmm.
No, we don't, because that word means energy center, and we have tons of them. Those are the main ones that we know of, but we have chakras on our fingers, in the palms. There are many of them, and it's not actually a secret. Those are points that, if you're an acupuncturist, for example, you know about those places on the body that you can trigger energy points and the flow of energy. So it's not like it's the well kept secret that nobody knows about. It's just that the popular opinion is there a set number of chakras, and that's all there is. So I feel that
Right.
we need to go deeper if we want to truly learn about energy from cultures that spent centuries developing a system and exploring.
Hmm.
I don't think necessarily that someone has to work with energy and awaken their chakras and their heart center to manifest. Because here's a funny story. I spent several years trying to get my energy centers unblocked because I felt they were blocked,
Hmm.
and that didn't allow me to manifest specific things in my life. And what actually did it was when I stopped trying to push energy and keep them open and unblocked and awakened and everything,
Hmm.
but I actually sat down and looked into my limiting beliefs and my beliefs in general and how I saw the world, and discovered that it made sense that my heart chakra felt blocked and dirty all the time, because I had some pretty nasty beliefs about myself and my self-worth.
Yes.
And I worked on those beliefs, and suddenly my heart chakra is fine.
Yes. I
Now
have
it feels
found,
fully open and clean and everything all the
yeah,
time, and I don't have to have an energy practice to manage it.
I have found the same thing. Oftentimes, an affirmation that's related to the chakra, I am open to
Mm,
love, seems to have more power than the mantra or the visualization when I'm coaching and telling people, hey, your heart chakra is blocked, but you just sitting and doing a mantra might not work. There's a reason that it's blocked. I think what you just pointed out is so true, especially for us in the West. A lot of times it's our subconscious beliefs that are blocking our chakras, and we're trying to deal with another aspect of it. So thank you for pointing that out. I like that. Um,
I
all right.
love that I'm not the only person that had that experience with beliefs and
Yes.
chakras.
Yes. And a lot of times I just think that people will come to me, yeah, man, I had my third eye opened, and I'll be like, okay, explain to me what you felt. Did you have like, and so a lot of people will say that they had their third eye open or they're shocked, but I think that there's a kind of a misunderstanding. Um, these energy centers in many ways are an expansion of our power coming from the dropping of limited beliefs. So I'm so glad that you pointed out. So, all right. Um, the other class that you had that I wanted to mention, you have one on scripting hypersigils that's also available on your website, which I think I might have to check out because that's something I want to do. Now that's scripting. You write out a script. You're training on how to write scripts out and then put it into a hypersigil.
um, a hypersigil is not like a regular sigil in the
Okay.
sense that it is not a symbol, it is a story
It's a story. Okay.
where you script your reality. And there are many comic book writers that have actually created hypersigils, either consciously, deliberately, as a hypersigil, or that's how they discovered hypersigils.
Right.
For example, Grant Morrison is one who has worked a lot with hypersigils.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically a form of scripting. It's just usually with hypersigils, most people don't script in the diary form, that is the most common one when it comes to scripting. They
Right.
actually create a novel or a comic book, a fictional story, but you know that this character is me, the fictional me.
Right. Okay.
That's the
So
difference. It doesn't have to be that way. It can be done like regular scripting, but it's usually more of a longer project, not just one page about the end result that you want, but you work through issues, basically.
that is fascinating. I love how you explain that. And it's similar to what we talked about with Frederick Dotson and the identity shift. It sounds a lot like the beginnings of creating the story around how you can change your identity, which would pull you into a reality. Am I right?
Yeah,
Is-
of course.
yeah. So I'm excited about that. That sounds very, very interesting. I'm sure that as soon as I'm going to get done with this interview, I'm going to have like 10 more questions that I'm going to be like, oh, I could have asked her about that. But I just urge everybody to subscribe to the Unseen Seraph and check out her website, www.unseenseraph.com. And if you are looking to manifest a specific person, if you have blocks in your process of manifestation, you really deal with some topics beautifully that a lot of people struggle with that have really helped me in enhancing my luck. Your video on how to become lucky now is one of my favorites, and your
So happy
description
to
of
hear that.
specific person and So I want the most important thing when I asked you to interview was just so that I could thank you for adding to my knowledge. And I'm sorry for interrupting you so much. So, but this has been a wonderful interview, and I hope to have you on again soon as we expand. Is there anything else you want to end with as we've discussed all of these different topics?
I would like to encourage people to experiment for themselves instead of just expecting to hear the ultimate truth from someone,
Yes.
because I believe that me and most other people who talk about those topics don't feel that they know everything and they have all the answers and they're gods that can make absolutely everything happen like that. We experiment too. So I think people should trust themselves more and try things out, see what works for them.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Scarlett, and
Thank
welcome.
you for having me. It was
Welcome.
really nice to be here.
It was very nice. And welcome to the Reality Revolution.